Welcome back to Tools and Track. In the last episode we made this thing run. So the big question today is, what do we do next?
What do we do next? Yep.
Right, so what we're doing here is taking the electrical stuff out of the way because we're not going to talk about this anymore. Mainly because it's making my head pickle. What we have here is a half assembled riot of a car. I want to get to a point now where we're going to start putting panels on it. However, every single panel, and I'm not joking, every single panel that I've been thinking about attaching to this car has an issue. Many moons ago, I bought this mad aircraft grade aluminium, which is very light, very strong. However, it is very problematic to use on a car. The reason being, it really doesn't bend. That's part of where it comes up with its strength. It doesn't flex and it doesn't take a bend well. Now, whilst that's great at adding strength, it does limit where I can use it on the car. And I've been trying to kind of come up with ideas for where this can go. And the reason why that's going to be a problem is this. Even this back panel here, if you look, has a bend in it. So this is flat, that's angled, and then the bottom part's flat. So for me to put this entire thing sheeted in that steel, it's not going to work because it's not going to bend. Similarly, if we were to run it down the outside of the car, or indeed the inside of the car, there's a great big kink in the middle where the driver's knees would be. So that's not going to work either. So there's a finite number of places where I can put this that it's going to work. We need to work out what's going to get normal aluminium and what's going to get the fancy strong stuff.
I've prepared a list.
Okay.
Another one.
So first off, the most obvious panel that I would like to make out of aluminium is what currently holds our Patreon board. We let an airbag off on that because it was clearly not going to be the right thing. That panel...
What do you mean it's not going to be the right thing? This took me at least 47 minutes.
No, I'm not having a go. It's going to be the right thing in that it's a template to make it out of thicker, proper aircraft grade.
But I put my heart and soul into this.
I know, and
you
it's
can even see my wee lines.
Yes, I get that. And we will use that to template onto the thicker steel.
But no for actual body panel.
No. So, where that panel is going to live is here. Now that's going to hold all of the engine governance such as the battery, an expansion tank, fuse box, all of that's going to live there. Now you can see straight off the bat, there's a great big problem with it. The steering rack runs through where that needs to be, right there. The steering wheel's also missing a joint when it needs to attach to the car. So this section here and that section there cannot be panelled until I finish off mounting the rack. We can't panel this and we can't panel that because these sections here are sitting at angles, so that's going to be the normal mild aluminium as opposed to the aircraft grade stuff. I ordered the floors to be pre-guillotined, so the problem I've got here, the problem I've got with the floor is I ordered this stuff pre-guillotined, and well, it's also been guillotined a wee bit too short for the entire length of the floor.
Excellent.
Isn't it just?
So what are we doing?
Well,
nothing to do with the body panel?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, what we need to do is establish, before we take all of this stuff back out, if we've got the right picture of it all, we need to make a list, and that's what we're doing. To do the floor panels, I think we will split the floors here. So we'll have a section there, it's going to be a join line, and in the section there's going to be another bit. Because these two bits here are quite blatantly done, they're ready to go. I'm not finished dicking around with the seats, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I might actually rip the seats out and start again because I'm not fully happy with how they work. So we'll come back to that. But we can floor here, we can panel off here. With a bit of poker, we can deal with that steering rack and do there. We can panel this bit. This section here I want to run the aircraft grade stuff down because, well, that's a good chunk of where the engine sits. Is going to have a lot of twisty torsional strength needed in it. And it's just a nice section of straight panel. However, the car will need to be upside down for that to happen. So what I need to do before we strip it all out is make sure that I've dealt with everything, absolutely everything that's needed with the engine in for me to size up before we take it all out.
I've just noticed there's no clutch.
No, I need to deal with that too. Can be right specific.
See if we feel, right? The engine's in and it runs.
Yeah.
Like, that is cool as f***. When you look at the fact that the engine is literally sitting in that tubular steel that not that long ago I was getting confused over trying to cut multiple angles into.
Yeah.
And it now is mounted on it and runs and has a joint prop shaft. So, you know, it's not like there hasn't been a significant achievement.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to do the floor, but the things we need to address. So first off, steering shaft.
Long.
Nice.
What we're going to do is we're going to move this permanent, non-permanent marker away from vehicles.
Coming up, we need to deal with panels. We need to deal with brakes.
Clutch, seats,
Floor.
if you're going to redo them. Fuel system. I literally didn't see that. We're f***ing in sync, but two
Yes.
words share a period.
Yes, it's a long list in itself, but there's also subcategories to all of this that we'll need to deal with.
This may come as a shock to you, but building a car from scratch is quite a challenge.
Yeah, it's came as a shock to me. The clutch.
That does look like it's going to be a challenge.
The clutch is going to be a challenge, and actually the clutch I need to deal with before we look at panels, because I have a strong worry here that once that clutch gets acted on, it hits the chassis. If you look there, you have 5mm of travel before that goes ping right there. So I'm actually in the process of gradually removing it, because we're about to start the steering shaft modification that we discussed earlier on. However, I've been pondering this fuel situation, because this is what you do when you've got a project car. You'll find the problem and go, I don't know how to fix that. So you'll go, go home. You'll drink some coffee, such as what will now follow here. And then you'll go, a bit more, and get a bit angry. And then come back to it again another morning and go, I think I've got an idea. Today is one such morning. I think I've got an idea. So it's a returnless system. We'll make sure we've got all of the original car there, and the line and the pump and blah blah blah. And obviously it's still not working, so we tried to get the electrics to sort of match with that, and it's still not working. And well, why are we keeping the returnless system? Is the question I'm now asking myself, and I'm going to find an answer to that probably quite swiftly when I see how much hell's going to be involved. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to take the inlet manifold off and get a look at this fuel rail, because if I can quite simply drill and tap a hole and put a return in, I'm going to do it. For I can see no reason why, if we've changed everything else on the fuel supply side of things, we can't just modify the fuel rail and make it work with the return system. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
I mean, we could always take the engine out the car.
We could do. Remember this from many episodes ago? I finally broke it, because nothing fits this thread that was drilled in here.
Good.
I was very close with a 3/16 until I was tightening it, and it got a wee bit too tight and went ping, and it has shredded all the threads in there. So that's basically, and it was a waste of time. The idea is good, but the fitting was useless. The reason I wanted that was because the clutch, I still need to establish if it's going to hit the frame. That's why I've not taken the engine out yet. But the more I think about this, the more I'm like, if that hits the frame anyway, well, I'm f***ed. So I think no matter what we do with this clutch, I'm going to have to inevitably modify the frame. So yeah, we might just take the engine out, but I'm going to try to take the inlet manifold off now, because I want to see this fuel rail, because it's in my head and I've got the thought. So let's just see what's involved with it. So yeah, inlet manifold off.
Are you alright, darling? Why don't you have your coffee first?
I'm getting a bit overwhelmed here, yeah.
Yeah, well.
I've put the engine in and got it to run, and been presented with many more problems than I started with. But I think we just need to take the engine out.
Okay, that sounds fun. I like taking engines out.
That'll be our draw for today, I think. Let's just... The engine doesn't need to be in anymore, we proved it runs.
Aye.
We've got a loan that works, so...
Let's get it out.
Question.
Answer.
Is it safe to sit
No.
an axle stand under the subframe?
Aye,
There's like a lip on the subframe, so I just sat it underneath.
as long as it's not like a soft
I know it's part of the actual subframe.
beam. Aye.
Spread it with wood.
That's a good shout.
Right, so I've been thinking fourth dimensionally, or more minge baggy way if I'm being honest. I can solve this clutch thing. The engine's in, I know how much distance I've got to clear. We take the engine out and then activate the clutch manually. We'll see how much the throw is, and if that's more than what space I've got, we'll have a problem. 26mm of travel.
Wow, that's not a lot. Are you going to need to make a multi-dimensional f***ing bracket?
26mm, remember that.
There's something not right there.
Aye, that. You look stressed out, mate. You alright?
Do you know something? It's not so bad that the fuel system didn't work. We kind of expected it, because everything else did. I'm just sitting looking at the alternator, it made 14 volts.
That's right, you checked
There's
it.
coolant pushing out the block, so the coolant was circulating the way it's supposed to.
It did leak.
The exhaust worked. Admittedly, it got hot because it was running lean, but I mean, the only thing it didn't work is the thing that we didn't think would work.
What, the woodwork? There's no wood in it. Yeah, you're absolutely on the money, mate. There's no chance I was expecting that whole system to do anything other than...
See, when we had to move the alternator, like that's one of the jobs where I looked at it and went, nah, I'd just gear up. And it not only is it mounted, it's mounted cleanly and it ran perfectly. Oh, that was really unclever.
We tightened it.
I don't know, what I've done is loosened it.
The Z bracket should now be removable because there is no tension on the gearbox. So I take the rubber off as well. And that allows the gearbox movement to come out.
Sure?
Yeah, the whole chassis is lifting. If you got.
Literally the entire thing is lifting.
No, it's not because it's the weight. The entire chassis weight is the engine. Science. What? Yeah, all got.
Oh!
That's what we want.
What?
Yeah.
Let me bring this up. That's us just about clearing the sun. Hold it there, there's a bolt we're going to annihilate.
Sorry mate, you alright? Straight back. Straight back. We're going to test the clearance now that I've got the clutch off in the absence of getting some form of hydraulic clutch system that works. So, mechanical motor, if you can do me a solid, I need to make sure I've got 26mm, under 26mm of throw on this. So if you can just hold that there at the 26 mark, right? Anywhere, pick anywhere you want. So by the time this throw comes out, so are we at 26?
Roughly, aye. No. There's about 4 inches.
The thought was there.
Right.
Back to the thinking board.
Yeah.
It looks very better.
Right, okay, I'll think of something in the meantime. Let's go on with strip this engine out. What did I take this engine out for again? Let's get this engine on a stand. We've not done that yet. I really want to clean this engine up, not just to check the fuel rail, but because, well, it's an old cast iron block and it looks crap. So, yeah, split the box off. Let's put this on a stand. therapeutic. Makes a change from dealing with rust and welding. Simple nut and bolt stuff for an engine, isn't it? Anyway, this is my NB fuel rail. You'll quite clearly note we have a fuel in and nothing out. Now I suspected this was going to be the case, so much so I was prepared to write this off. However, I've got another one of these, what looks like a pressure regulator but probably isn't, affairs. Now I've got these in, well, everywhere associated with the fuel line. I don't know what they're for, frankly I don't care. What I do know is that this thing bolts onto the fuel rail at the opposite end from the inlet with two 10mm bolts and what looks like a fairly standardised fitting. If it removes and it allows me access to the inside of the fuel line, that means it can be replaced with a simple outlet. All I need to do is make an adapter up, or hopefully, better yet, find one off the shelf. Yeah, that looks like a fairly standardised fitting. Next up, we'll strip down this entire engine and overhaul it. Not next up. No. Eventually, maybe. To be continued. I'm better now. We're not getting overwhelmed. I've got my engine out. I've got a solution to the fuel rail. Let's start just going through the list. So, the next thing, without bombarding you all, is to deal with this steering rack. Now, I've got a number of ideas for how to do it, but I'll be honest guys, this is going to be one of these ones where I just evolve a solution once I get my fabrication head on. So, let's end this episode with a lovely montage. Right, that's the steering rack dealt with, which pretty much wraps us up, apart from one little addendum to the bottom of the steering rack saga. Remember this guy? That was sitting just a little bit too close to the shaft when this thing was in place. So, before I forget, another thing off the list. Right, that'll wrap it up I think, to be honest. So, we're going to start in the engine and we're going to start in the chassis. The engine is going to get stripped obviously and made to look better. The chassis is also going to get stripped and strengthened, but we'll touch on that next week. In the meantime, Patreon's running up the side of the screen. Thank you very much for your support. It is literally building this nonsense. Granted not very quickly, but we'll work on that. If you don't know what that's about, patreon.com/toolsandtrack and help a brother out. If that's not for you, fully understand, just at least hit the like, subscribe crap at the bottom of this because it's the only way to go. And if that's not for you either, cool. Thanks for watching anyway. Hope you'll kick around for another one. We'll be back soon. Drive safe guys. Literally just hit record on some dick on a f***ing moped. There you go. There you go. Yeah. It's not a mild heart attack, boys, don't worry. Oh.